the 11th. Oh, I just got those out.
Basically,
And keep a very good schedule around here. much less.
Yeah. Let's call the meeting to order. Four of us are present. Tammy will be here. George is in Washington, D.C., and Jonathan is on vacation. So I don't expect Jonathan and George to be here tonight. Tammy, I expect will be here. Item 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda. You know what? Of September 18, 2018. Anyone?
Nope.
Hearing none. Item 3, discuss and hear the casino proposal from the United Kitowa, is that? Kituwa? Okay. Kituwa Band of Cherokee Tribe to be located at 9th Street and East Owen K. Garriott. Gerald?
Yeah, Mayor and Commissioners, I want to kick off the study session by saying that we're here to discuss a proposal that the UKB, United Kituwa Band, want to bring to us. It is a refined proposal. I think they've been interested in siting a casino here for a while, several years probably, maybe longer. I know they've been talking to me probably for several months. I've had a couple of meetings with several of the officials, including the chief and the assistant chief. And we discussed that probably the best way to bring this forward and talk about it in the community was to come in here in a study session and do it. Had some scheduling issues, but tonight's the night, and they are here tonight. And I just want to make clear for everybody that's in the audience and listening, this is a proposal that the UKB is bringing to the city to consider. In a study session format like this, we will just have discussion amongst the commissioners, and I will ask the UKBs to present their proposal, and everybody can hear that. There's no votes, there's no decisions made here in this forum or tonight. Having said that, I know that they have a presentation, and I'm going to introduce the chief here in a minute, and he can introduce everybody that's here, and then tell us who's going to present. And I know that the commissioners will have questions. We've talked about some of these things, and there may be other questions, and certainly it's a chance for you to answer them. I also know there's a couple of things that I've become aware of today, questions on social media about things like why can the city even talk about casinos? And because in the charter there's a provision in Section A that talks about a power the city has to prohibit gambling. Carol, would you answer that question? Why can we talk about casinos here tonight?
Well, primarily because I imagine that it's the intention of the tribe that they would have trust land, that it would be their land, and it would be their sovereign land. So it would, if that occurs, then it no longer really, it's part of our community, but it's not part of the city that is governed by the charter, or for that matter, Oklahoma law. It would only be governed by their own law and federal law.
Okay, I just mentioned that because there are lots of questions that are already posed to the commissioners, so I'm sure that if you don't answer them, you will be asked those tonight. And that's the intent of this forum, to be open and transparent. So with that, Chief Joe Bunch, sir, would you come up to the microphone, and would like you to introduce the folks that are here. And I don't know exactly who's going to do the presentation, but we...
Certainly, we'll get to that.
Okay, sir.
We can get to that.
Thank you.
One of the things, ladies and gentlemen, certainly it is a pleasure and honor to be here before you today to discuss the options and opportunities that are available. Certainly, Council, thank you for hearing us out. Thank you for hearing us. As the city manager mentioned, my name is Joe Bunch, and I am the chief of the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians. Those that are with me are Assistant Chief Jamie Thompson, Secretary Joyce Hawk, Treasurer Ella Mae Worley, Council Teresa Weber of the Tahlequah District, Adeline Smith of the Delaware District, Frankie Steele of the Flint District. We have our Attorney General with us, Clint Cowan. Also, we have corporate board members with us as well, Annalay Locus, John Adair, and the person that will be doing our presentation is the Executive Director for the Corporate Board, and that is Randall Hendricks. So with that, I will let Randall go.
Thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon. It's really good to be here today. So who are we? We are the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians. We're headquartered in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. We're descendants of the old settlers of the Western Cherokee. We didn't come over on the Trail of Tears. We migrated here before that in 1817. But we were removed to Indian Territory in the Treaty of 1828, which granted us about 7 million acres of land, which includes the Cherokee Strip, which is a stretch of land that's approximately 60 miles wide and 225 miles long that starts here in Enid, Oklahoma, and stretches out to Woodward, Oklahoma. Now, we are a federally recognized tribe. We were recognized in 1946. Our charter was approved and ratified in 1950. And we are a blood quantum tribe. We have about 14,000 members, each who would have a blood count of a quarter of Kituwa blood or more. Now, the proposed casino, the property is located on the East Owen K. Garriott Road and South 9th Street. It's approximately 5.4 acres of land. It'll house about a 20,000 square foot casino. And it'll take about $10 million to renovate that and to bring it up to par with higher caliber casinos that are in this regional market. And of course, there'll be ample parking, and most important, it'll be operated by an experienced and professional casino management team. We'll have smoking and non-smoking sections included. Now, the proposed site is on Enid's east side. Now, here's a picture of the existing building, the structure. I believe it was maybe a Centos or some sort of laundering service building there.
Yeah, East Enid doesn't mostly look like that. East Enid is lovely. We have it's the great part of town.
Yes, you do.
That is a very old building.
Yeah.
Well, we hope to revitalize that. Now, the top picture, you're standing on a northwest corner looking east. The bottom, you're looking straight north, and if you were there looking straight north and you look over to your right shoulder, behind you would be the jail. And the top picture here is coming down the street on the east side. Picture on your left is on the south side, which we may plan to put an eatery back there, something maybe outdoors that people can enjoy. Now, this rendering is a architectural rendering that it's not of our tribe. Those are not our symbols, or our seal is not on there, but based on the size of the building, this is what we approximate it will look like. Now, if we get started right away or as soon as possible, we can open in 2 years, in 2020. Now, we'll feature Class 2 and Class 3 games. That would be table games, blackjack, poker, and ball and dice.
Is that Vegas style, Randall, or is that?
Yes, it is. It would be Vegas style. We also would have approximately a 60-seat cafe where we would have a wet bar. We'd serve hamburgers, nachos, things like that. We don't plan to sell alcohol or beer. We never have done that before in our old casino, and it seemed to work out well for us. But again, the jail is across the parking lot, so if we had to, we could just drag them across over there. Now, the market study, the folks who've done this went about a 100-mile radius of Enid, where they found about roughly 32 or 36 casinos that influence the market here. Now, the gamer population, persons 19 years of age and older for this defined market, is expected to be about 930,000 by the year 2020 when we hope to open. And the Enid market itself contains about 37,000 gamer adults. and that is expected to remain steady over the next few years. Now, this proposed casino would become the most convenient gaming alternative for gaming patrons residing in the markets, and mostly for the ones residing right outside. We expect to capture about 80% of the Enid market itself. Based on a win per visit of $70, gaming revenue coming from that market would be about 18.2 million.
Can you define that term, win per visit?
It's a statistic based on, I can't exactly know the details of it, but it's a statistic that the folks who done this market study went out and sized up the population and the size of our casino, which is based on 600 machines. That's about as much as I can get into it with you. I can have someone answer that later.
I mean, I assume that win isn't for the people, is that what the casino counts as a win per visit? What's the amount of money lost per visit?
That would be, I would agree with you, would be what the casino would take on that.
Okay.
Now, we expect the secondary market, which would be the 36 casinos surrounding the area, we expect to catch about 32% of that. That would be the Tonkawa, Newkirk, and Perry. And that, based on a win per visit of $77 for that secondary market, that would be an extra $4 million in gaming revenue. In total, we expect to capture 5% of the local market to the west, which is most of the casinos of the 36 are organized about north, south, and east of Enid. There's not much out there to the west, so we expect to gain about 5% or 21,000 visits from that market. So in total of all that, we're expected to get about 27.3 million in local gaming revenue. Now, the incentives for the city of Enid, I think we've agreed to inject a $12 million monies to the city over a period of 7 years. Also, we've talked about an agreement with the city to set up a payment in lieu of taxes that'll occur every month based on proceedings from the casino itself. And that term will be of 10 years, where it will be renegotiated. Perhaps something like a cost of living increase would be added, something like that. We want to work with the city of Enid. As far as public safety, we would like to look at cross-deputization agreements. We'd like to hire your off-duty law enforcement if they want to, supplement their income, as well as retired police officers. Of course, would work with the fire services, with the Enid Fire Department. The unemployment rate in Garfield County is about 3.6%. Now, the proposed casino, we project that it would have a need of 157 full-time staff. And I know that some Katua may move out here, but not many. Most of them will stay in Tahlequah. We don't like to leave Tahlequah. And we expect to, and that will give actually the citizens of Enid, some of them, opportunities for employment. And we'd like to work with your local career tech to maybe perhaps hire some of their graduates. The Katuas are a friendly and peaceful tribes. We want to go where we're not, we want to go where we're wanted, basically. And we want to complement the things you have here. We don't want to compete, such as the event center you have. It's a very, very nice event center. We are not in the entertainment business, and we don't want to be. So we would like to complement what you have rather than compete with it. Oh, as far as also your hotel, you have a nice Marriott, or I think it's a Marriott that's coming in. No? Best Western?
Low.
Yes.
Yeah. We're not in the hotel business either, and we don't want to be, so we'd like to complement that also, instead of compete against it. What we've gathered is the city of Enid is in a bad need or a dire situation. They need in dire straits for a new movie theater. The Choctaw tribe in Durant, they have something called the Choctaw District, which is a family-friendly gaming playground for families, basically. They have about 3 to 4 theaters inside there. They have a bowling alley, laser tag, arcade, things like that for their citizens to enjoy, but it's also become a popular family spot, a family destination. People travel from all around the area just to be there and have a good time.
Explain the laser tag.
That's the picture that's on the bottom. Those kids have little rifle-looking instruments that have lasers attached to them, and they also have apparatuses attached to their body that when that laser hits it, it shakes. So you know you've been hit, basically. It's a fun game, and I still play it to this day.
But that's not part of the plan you're proposing as
That-
phase one. That would be a maybe at
Phase-
some point later?
Yes, that's be phase two, part of phase two plan, something we could possibly offer, once the casino's up and has to be profitable. But we would like to actually, boost that east side also, help move some good things out there and draw some people. Now, all of this, it's a big process, and, there's things to consider from environmental analysis all the way down to, a Section 20 process. But we are on the first step. We need a yes vote from the city council. Now, in conclusion, here's what we know. That citizens are already gaming at other casinos. We would bring something fun and different to do here in town. With our phase two opportunity, there'd be a ton of fun things to do for families to come to Enid. Perhaps all your citizens would stay here and enjoy themselves, would increase their quality of life, and perhaps offer new revenue streams for the city. Now, with back to the process, we're at stage one. We'd like a successful voting from the city council, and then it's game on. Thank you.
Gerald, what are we actually going to be voting on? What are we supposed to vote yes or no on?
Well, tonight, we're not voting on anything, but
Understand.
in the
I mean,
future, potentially, I believe what they're asking for is some sort of resolution of support from the city, and in exchange for that resolution of support, if the commission was ever willing to do that, they would likely want something in return, like what they talked about with the sales tax in lieu of agreement or in lieu of sales tax agreement, investments in the community, et cetera, whatever that is. They've discussed about $12 million, I think over 7 years. We have mentioned to them that sales tax is what the city lives on, so to speak. So that would be very important to the commission at some point. We have not really discussed the agreement in length, other than see a template type form, because this is clearly the first step. And what I've told everybody from the group that I've met with is that this will be a difficult step, because there's some people that are for it, there's some people against it. There's all kinds of, I see the Enid News and Eagle is running a poll right now, and I think when I looked at it before, it was polling in favor of, but the poll that really matters is the city commission that's sitting up here. And so, to answer your question, at some point in the future, there potentially could be a vote, but the city commission will direct how that occurs or when it occurs.
If it's not a positive vote, if the result is not a yes vote, well, then what's going to happen?
That'd be a good question I can't really answer. Chief, is your legal counsel here? Could they, or maybe you could answer that? The question is, if there is no resolution of support given, either because there's no vote or there's a no vote, which sounds funny, it's not exactly the same thing, but what would happen? Why do you need the city commission's?
Well, to
Support.
apply, so the first step in the process is to apply to the Department of Interior to take this property into trust by the federal government for the Katua Band. The tribe doesn't necessarily need the city's agreement with that, but UKB wants to work with the city and wants the city's support. Without support from the city, the tribe could go ahead and seek to have that land placed into trust. And it's kind of what happened in Guyman with the Shawnee tribe. There were split city councilors, and there were some letters of support from some of them and letters of opposition from others. But the Shawnee tribe went ahead with their application and ultimately got the Interior Department to take land in Guyman and trust for them, on which they can open a casino now. The other important process or step in the process is that the governor of Oklahoma has to agree that this land can be taken into trust for gaming purposes. If the governor doesn't consent, then it won't happen. So UKB just wants the city's support so we can go to the governor and ask the governor, you know, the local community supports it. We'd like you to consent to the land being taken in trust.
So just to follow up on Commissioner Jansen's question, to get the governor's support, the governor might be interested in if the local community supports it.
Absolutely.
So therefore, if the local community doesn't support it through an action of the city commission, that could negatively impact what the governor does. But it
Yes.
sounds like the governor could still approve it anyway. What you're saying is
Yes,
that
and that's what happened in Guyman. The governor approved it anyway, even though the city was split.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Well, I know the
Yeah.
mayor knows the mayor in Guyman and probably has firsthand knowledge of.
Yeah,
I'm aware of that.
yeah.
Is the BIA a part of the Bureau of
Interior?
Interior?
Yes, the BIA is a subdivision of the Interior Department.
You said it better than I did, but yes.
So the person, before the governor's consent becomes an issue, this Section 20 application has to be submitted to the Interior Department in Washington, D.C.
Correct.
Ultimately, the Secretary of Interior would sign off on that, Ryan Zinke. Once Ryan Zinke signs off on the application and says the Interior will take this land into trust for the Katua Band, then they send a letter to the governor of Oklahoma saying, we're planning to take this into trust for gaming purposes. Do you consent? Do you agree with this decision? And the governor can either write back and say, yes, I consent, which is what she did in Shawnee, or do nothing, in which case it wouldn't go forward without the governor's consent.
One other question. You sort of described the building that was going to be used. You talked primarily about the old laundry building there, and is it all going to be in that building? Or are you planning on building another structure there or enlarging that building?
Can I address that, Joel?
Yeah, Jamie, if you just introduce yourself.
My name
again.
is Jamie Thompson. I'm the assistant chief, and I've been working on this project for a couple of years, so I'm familiar with some of the things that's going on. And your answer to your question is yes. That building is about 20,000 square feet, and it would be sufficient for what we showed you, the before and after there. What you saw was an architectural rendition of a building similar in size to that structure out there. And so that's what that particular building you have sitting out there could be transformed into if, the developer and everybody would agree to turn it into something of that similar. Not exactly like that one, but, that's a scale of what it looks like. And we've looked at the building, been inside. It's it's an old building, but it's still structurally sound. We've already had the NEPA report has been done on the building, brought to date. And so, as a matter of fact, just to give you a brief history, if you don't mind, since we're talking here, and this is just a Q&A.
Please go ahead, because you're leading into my question.
Okay, good. The Katua, we've operated a casino for 28 years in Telequa, Oklahoma, in our headquarters. And so, as you all, I don't know, maybe you're not aware of what goes on in the eastern part of the state, but there's another group over there called the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Now, they're just a tribe that has been approved by administration. That's it. They hatched out like an egg, chicken hatching out of an egg in about 1977. And I grew up there, born and raised there. I've been born in Katua, so I know the history. And I'll be glad to debate that with any of those members from that so-called tribe anytime anybody wants to sit down and do it. Unfortunately, they avoid me like I got leprosy. And so I happen to know the history. We're the only OIWA tribe, only Cherokee OIWA tribe. What that means is the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act. We organized under the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act in 1936. So therefore, we're the only recognized Cherokee tribe in Oklahoma that organized under the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act. Now, a few years ago, they said that our casino, which had been operating, probably one of the first ones in the nation for 28 years, there on our piece of ground that we purchased with our own money, owned and operated for years. Well, they come in and said, you're not on trust land. You can't game here. Now, they'd been taking our tax dollars, like we've talked about here, just in brief, for several years, and enjoying the rewards from that. But all of a sudden, they jumped up and said, whoa, here, they're not on trust land. So through a number of years of litigation, the CNO said, you got to go to the secretary. So we went to the Secretary of the Interior, and the Assistant Secretary, Larry Eckelhawk, went through the whole gamut of all the paperwork and everything, and they determined that we met the guidelines to have land put in trust. So lacking 14 days before it became final, the CNO, the people that hatched out like a chicken down there in 77, filed an injunction. Now, you all know that you can sue anybody for anything if you got enough money to keep it in court and tie it up. So that's what happened to us. They filed an injunction. They didn't sue the Katuas, okay? They sued the United States of America. Now, go figure that one. But anyway, they sued the Secretary of Interior, says you do not have the power that Congress granted you to take this land into trust for these Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act tribal members. So that's where we're at. We had to close our doors waiting on this litigation. And it's still tied up in litigation. It's been 5 years now. Now, you saw the numbers there. We're a small tribe of 14,000 people because we're real Indians. We're not what I call Windians. That's a bunch of white people that want to be Indians. The joke in Tahlequah is, what do you have when you have 2,200 CNO registered citizens in one room? Anybody want to care to answer that? It's called a full blood. 2200th degree, okay? So therefore, we're the real tribe. That's why we have low numbers. We have blood quantum. You can't be less than a quarter to be a member of the Katuas. We're a friendly tribe. We have been looking at Enid. We were approached by some developers, a group of developers from your town, your area here, and said, hey, we don't have a casino. Would you consider coming to Enid? It's in the old Cherokee Outlet, your former reservation. So that's how we ended up being here, and we started looking at this and looking at the building. And so what we're here for is to get you all's blessing. We want to partner with the city of Enid. We want to enhance. We don't want to hinder. And we have an opportunity here to, inject some money here. We know that money's leaving this town. I think you can look at the poll and see, and we've checked it. You guys got people going to Tonkawa. We want to keep the money here and be a partner with you. It's a known fact that for 28 years, the city of Tahlequah, we put in, stoplights, things of that nature to help the city other than just, in lieu of tax that we had there. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background and one of the reasons why we're coming here. It's a business venture. I kind of look at it as like Walmart. Walmart, everybody knows their headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas, but they got a store in this city. They've got them everywhere, all over the world, matter of fact. Our headquarters is in Tahlequah. We've actually got Katuas living in Enid right now. They work out here at one of these factories you have here. So there are some Katua Cherokee Indians living in Enid. They're citizens here already. But we know that not all of our people will move out here. We want to have a business here. We want to partner with the city. And we're here as any business venture. We're here to make money. And if we don't make money, we can't pay that tax or that almost $12 million infrastructure we want to inject into here. We passed a resolution. We've already been to the Secretary of Interior. We've been to the governor's office. We need your blessing. If we get this city's blessing, we can do the things that we saw here tonight. We could come in here with a phase 2 and maybe enhance later on, but first we got to come in here like any business and start generating some income. Does that make sense? I hope I've cleared up some things for you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
What properties do you own in Enid right now?
We don't own any properties in Enid right now, sir.
Well, you have some property under control or under contract.
We don't have any property under control or under contract.
But your attorney said something different, I think.
Well, we have an agreement with that with the developing company.
The laundromat building and the Dexius building are. You have some interest in them.
We have a contract with the developing company that wants to donate that land to the United States of America to be held in trust for the benefit of the United Band of Cherokee Indians.
Okay, but
that makes sense.
But the it is under your control in some form or another. I mean, you are not planning a development for property under which you don't have any ownership interest.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The development group owns the property. If the Section 20 application to the Department of Interior were successful and the Interior said, we're going to take it into trust for the benefit of the tribe, then the tribe's laws would apply to that piece of property, but it wouldn't happen until
Who is the
Interior
development group?
agrees. Who's the development
It's
group?
Garfield Development Group. I don't know who all.
Who is that?
I don't know who they are. I mean, I don't know.
You don't, sorry, you don't know who the development group you're working with on
It's
this?
called Garfield Development Group, sir. I can't give you the names of who all's in there. They came to us, there's a group of gentlemen, and they said, hey, we've got a piece of property here we've purchased, it's free and clear, liens, covers, and mortgages. Would you all consider coming in and putting a casino in there? So that's how this thing started.
You said they're local folk. Who are the local folks?
Well, I don't know if they're local or not. I might have misspoke there. I don't know exactly where they live. All I know is it's called Garfield Development Company, and I think this is Garfield County. So I don't know how they got that name.
But you won't tell me who they are.
Well, I'm not at liberty to tell you who those people are right now, but if we get to where we sign some contracts, they'll have to be disclosed.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
While
Yeah.
you're there, you or someone explain sovereignty to me.
Would you like to have sovereignty explained to you? I'll let our legal counsel, he's pretty
exactly-
good on this right
that's
here. so
exactly
He
who
can
I
probably
want.
explain it better than I can, sir.
That's
We
exactly-
all learn in high school that in the United States, there are two sovereigns, the federal government and the state government. When the country was formed, individual states came together and through the Constitution created a federal government that also had sovereignty, and the two kind of balance sovereign interests. By sovereign, I mean the government that passes laws for an area, that passes criminal laws for people, that runs law enforcement. So we've always had two sovereigns in the United States, the federal government and the states. Everybody learns that. In fact, what the Supreme Court has said since the early 1800s is that there are actually three sovereigns in the United States: the federal government, the state governments, and the Indian tribal governments. Because the Indian tribal governments predate the Constitution. They've been around since before the United States. And the Indian tribal governments didn't come to the Constitutional Convention and say, we want to be part of this Constitution. But they have inherent governmental rights under federal law to act as a government and to pass laws and prosecute their members and do everything a government would do. So,
I've always heard that, but I was glad to hear you say it.
okay. Does that answer the question?
It does.
Okay.
Bill, one other question, if I may, concerning the site. I understand you've got a building that's the right size. What about parking? The casinos that I've observed have always got a large parking area around them, and is there parking space there already?
I'll have to defer to the assistant chief.
There certainly isn't ample parking space right now to accommodate 600 machines, but there's a parcel, I guess we'd just say an area, a green area right now that's to the south toward that street. I can't remember that street. Chief, somebody might clarify it runs east and west to the south, like you're going down to the county jail. If you turn west right there, there's a pretty good area between the building itself. I think the picture that showed you when he was looking south was standing probably in that road. You've seen all that green. So
There is a grass parking lot
Yeah.
there to the south of the structure you're talking about.
Well, there's
It's traditionally been used as parking for the sports complex.
Is that right? Well, that part of that land would become a actual parking lot for the patrons of the casino. And then to the north side there.
How would you acquire it?
How would you acquire?
I mean, if.
That's part of the 5.4 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. That's all part of that 5.4 acres. And then right to the north of the building there, there's already some parking there. It needs to be cleaned up, obviously there's weeds and stuff growing up in it. But there would be parking there, and then as in time needed, if we was to grow, we could go to the west. there's some land or to the west, a green area too, that could be turned into parking.
South side has tennis courts, softball.
Yeah, that's
baseball
across that road.
And a football field.
Yeah, that's across that little road. I don't know that street name. But it runs, yeah, thank you. It runs down to the little creek area down there. So from that road north up to that building.
Wabash,
Wabash, yes,
east.
yes.
Okay. That would be the area for parking area to accommodate that, sir.
Did somebody explain what Aboriginal water rights means? I saw that on the slide, but
That was just, since this was part of our original reservation, then we have Aboriginal water rights here in this area here. And I understand that, that there's some concerns about water in this area out here. And, we might be able to get involved in that some form or fashion, because we would be out here obviously using water. So, that would have to be something to take into consideration too. Good question, though.
Here's my fundamental problem with this. I see this as a business venture that you folks are taking on. And I see that you're projecting quite a bit of income. I don't think you're good for my community. I don't think casinos are a net positive to any community, and I don't want one here. I see in research direct correlation between proximity to casino and increase in divorce rates, increase in bankruptcy rates. I see crime rates increase, and that's all that's all pretty well researched. I see that you folks have an opportunity to make a lot of money here and give the city of Enid government some of it, but I don't think it's a net positive for the community as a whole. I think you are making money from, statistically, generally, with tribal gaming in Oklahoma, statistically more likely to be poor, elderly, and you are subject to very little state regulation in how you target your services. There are services, there's entertainment, and you folks have a really fantastic position to be in that you can know someone is a gambling addict and directly target them with mailers. You can go bring people over on a free bus from the assisted living center on the day Social Security payments come through. And you're under very little regulation not to, which is a great money-making venture. I don't want you to do it here. And so there are people from Enid who go gamble elsewhere. I don't want it to be easier. There are people from Enid who would like to have a casino here, and for many of them, I'm sure it's just a form of entertainment. But there are enough people in my community who will be negatively impacted that I will do everything I can to keep you from coming here, including whatever we can do, and going to the governor and our local House reps. And I don't mean that in a, I don't want to, this is not a personal attack, this is a business matter.
Right.
But I don't think the benefits you provide to my community, even at $12 million over 7 years, are remotely close to what you will cost my community. And it's a fairly black and white issue to me. You don't bring net positives. We don't need to go back and forth because I don't expect that I sure as hell am not going to convince you, but I don't, nor will I think you convince me. But I hope that at least 3 more of my fellow commissioners will recognize that, listen, this isn't good for Enid, and it's sure as hell not good for. It may be good for the Enid city budget.
Watch your language.
Apologies, Mayor. It sure as heck won't be good for the community. It may be good for the city of Enid budget, but it's not the community as a whole. This is not a net positive. Let's just put the brakes on this and make Enid the most difficult community in Oklahoma to build a casino.
I have some more questions.
Would you mind if I rebut to Mr. Ezel's
You have
comment?
the floor.
Mr. Ezel, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, and I respect that. I really do. And I know where you're coming from. But I'd like to just address some facts that you mentioned there briefly. We had a casino for 28 years in Oklahoma, in Tahlequah. And as far as I know, the divorce rate didn't change. And I'll tell you something. I grew up north of Oklahoma in Cherokee County, out there in what's called the Going Snake District. I just got through being an instructor for the Career Tech of Oklahoma for about 7 years in Adair County, which happens to be the poorest county in the state of Oklahoma. They don't have a casino there. But I'm going to tell you something. There's not a man or a lady sitting in this room today that grew up more broke than I was when I was born and raised in that territory out there. I know what it's like to draw water out of a well, sir. I know what it's like to see my grandmother and my mother using a washer with a wringer on it. And I'm 60 years old, but I chose not to stay in that type of environment. And I worked in Canada, worked all over in construction. I'm a master carpenter. I've come to the conclusion that people are where they are because they want to be. I really believe that. Because nobody's going to come by and sprinkle magic dust on people and change things. So I'm just telling you, I respect your opinion, but we could argue all day long, and I know you're a very sharp guy, but I'm just telling you, that casino out there is not going to change things. We're not going to go ride and get a bus and drag, the people out of the nursing homes. We've never done that, because that's not the way our Katua people, we don't believe in that kind of stuff, first of all. We want to provide an opportunity there. We showed you a very good PowerPoint presentation. Briefly, you see the structure. I think it's not all about the money, but we're here as a business person. We want to make sure that. Right now, based on what's happened to us, we've lost several $1 million over there, and it's in litigation, and we're going to win. But we're here to offer an opportunity, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm 60 years old, and I could have stayed walking down them bushes over there if I wanted to and scratching my broke you-know-what, but I decided not to. And I chose, so people are where they are because they want to be. That's my opinion, okay?
But let me tell you another story. I'm an attorney, and I do a fair amount of different things, but among other things, I'm a bankruptcy attorney.
Beg your pardon?
Bankruptcy attorney. I
Okay.
represent debtors. And I had a great pair of clients. They were sweet folks. They were older. And they had a gambling problem. And they knew they had a gambling problem. And they hid it from each other, and they hid it from their family. And ultimately, we had to do a bankruptcy for them. They lost a business, they lost their house, they lost a lot. And although they made some mistakes, they did one really smart thing. They picked up and moved across the country as far as they could get from a casino. Because although people are who they are, you can still make it easier or make it harder. And these folks knew they had a problem, and they took a step to take themselves out of an area where it was just simply too easy to relapse. It was a nice piece of self-control. Here's the thing, I want those people here. I want those folks to be in our community regardless of whether they struggle or not with gambling addiction, and I think we make it harder for good folks to live here. Second story, and I'll be brief, I also represent banks. I represent local banks, not big national banks, but local ag banks and commercial banks. Right. And we had a guy who borrowed money from a bank and had a good business and had the same problem. He had a gambling problem. And he lost his business, and he cost my clients a not insignificant amount of money.
Yep. Because
he took business proceeds and went to the casino up the road.
Yeah.
And he didn't go to the casino across the state. And he went driving back and forth from the office to the house. He happened to go within a couple miles of the casino and stop in and spend a little bit here, spend a little bit there, spend a little bit there. And it wasn't an intentional thing. He didn't, I think, you never know, intend on losing all this money, but things happen. And I don't want to make it easy for folks in my community, especially in the poor, older part of the community where you're looking at, where I grew up, to have that kind of casual, accidental gambling. Not just the addicts, but the casual stuff that adds up.
Yep.
I just don't want to make it easy for folks in our community. I want you to go somewhere else.
Yep.
I want you to go find somewhere else and make all the money
I
you can
understand
imagine,
that.
but don't do it for my town,
Right.
please.
And I appreciate you standing for your people, just like I've got to stand for mine. So thank you very much.
I understand.
Just,
Chief.
let me add just one thing.
Chief, be sure to talk into the mic, please.
I'm sorry, thank you for that. Attorney, part of my past life, not being a chief, so to speak, was I was a gaming commissioner. I was also on the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association that represented 23 tribes across this state. Of the 39 tribes in Oklahoma, 23 of them gamed. that were associated with that association, so to speak. Indian gaming is probably one of the hardest items to get into because of the fact that we're regulated by three bodies or three different layers of government. The tribal government, and if we compact with the state, we're regulated by the state compacts as well as the federal as well. Now, I'm not going to change your mind at all, but I just want to make this statement, is we are regulated fairly well. That point is there because the corruption, the outside influences and things of that nature, we prohibit that from coming into our house, okay?
Thank you.
The second part of that is it's a matter of choice. It's your choice, it's my choice. We're all over 21, 18. I could have credit card debts that would bankrupt me. I could have an alcohol problem that would bankrupt me. And so it's not fair to say that casinos are like that, and they will do that. So please, it's a choice, okay? And I agree, and again, I thank you for your comment. I'm not going to change it anyway, but that's entirely up to the individual. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry, your attorney has.
I just wondered if I could say one thing.
We don't have to be through until 6:15. You can see that clock and I can see that
Okay.
clock. So we will finish by 6:15.
I represent tribes mostly throughout the state, and I do a lot of gaming work. I just want everyone to be aware that every single casino in Oklahoma has what's called a ban list. You can voluntarily put yourself on that ban list if you realize you have a problem and you don't want them to contact you or let you into the casino anymore. And they've got surveillance, of course, on everything. So if you're on that ban list and you try to come in, they will physically keep you from coming into the casino. So there are ways in the regulations to help prevent people with problems from continuing to game. I just wanted to tell everyone that.
Well, you may as well stay there.
Okay.
That was a good point. The Ponca tribe is planning a casino at I-35 and 412. I'm sure you all are aware of that. How do you view them as competitors? 32 miles away. Anyone or all of you, take a shot at it.
We're going to welcome them.
You have to know that is.
Yeah, we
happening.
are aware of that. We saw the papers like everybody else does. I'm not on a first name basis with the Ponca chief, obviously, and the people over there, but that's going to be a small operation, I understand. It's going to be mainly just on that highway there. It's not going to, I don't think it'll affect ours. We did the number, the market study that we had took that in consideration. And I don't know if you guys got to see the market study or not, but it was with a 100-mile radius. They listed every tribe that had a casino and how many machines they had, how many ball and dice, and all that stuff. So we're not concerned about that right now. As a matter of fact, they had started on that project, and when they got wind of us doing this, they kind of pulled back. And then I saw recently that they're thinking about doing it too. So, we feel like there's probably enough room for everybody here. So the ones that if we have to bar some people, then they can go down. We can't tell them what to do down there. They can run down there, I suppose. But we're not concerned about it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. I've got several, but go right ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
You mentioned something about the type of gambling devices that you were going to have. Can you give me some idea of what kind of electronic devices you're going to have and how many of them are going to be in there?
The market study was done for 600 machines, electronic machines in that building, and then some ball and dice. We don't know how many people participate in the ball and dice, the market.
What ball?
The ball means the roulette wheel, and the dice is, we used to do that in the back alley back there years ago.
Ball game.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That
600 machines.
600 electronic, gaming machines. Okay.
David, do you have a question? What happens if you decide to close down the casino with the Enid revenues? If that happened, as you said, Some casinos have closed. What happens to the contract that you signed with the revenues coming to the city of Enid? Then I have another question right behind that.
That would need to be dealt with in the, whatever agreements are put in place with the city, and UKB would want the city to be comfortable with whatever that is, because you're right, some casinos have closed down. Sometimes things don't go the way you think they will. So we could build some sort of agreement into the contract that we'd have to pay a parachute payment or something if we decide to close this casino within so many years. So that's just an example.
If you're a sovereign country, who would you deal with? Or who would the city?
Well, we can still be subject to contract law. So if we sign a contract with the city of Enid and we break that agreement, it will have something called a waiver of sovereign immunity that will allow the city to sue or go after the money that you're owed under the contract.
That you owed, or?
That they owe to the city.
Yeah, that the casino owed to the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the mayor's issue, just following up, is even though the city could pursue that, the casino would not have any money, so therefore there would be no money to pay it.
I see.
Would
We
the
don't-
UKB sign a guarantee as a
We need
tribe?
all the revenue we can get
Yeah.
because we're building a big pipeline.
We would want everyone to be comfortable with whatever that solution is. Maybe we put some money in escrow or something that's guaranteed to go back to Enid if the casino closes within 10 or 15 years. There's ways to deal with that.
I understand that's a what if,
Okay.
because I understand you do not pay sales tax nor ad valorem tax.
Right. The tribe is not subject to the state or city sales tax or any taxes because it is its own sovereign entity. However, as a sovereign entity, it can agree with the city to pay it a payment in lieu of taxes or pay it some money just through contract law. And so there are ways for the tribe without paying taxes to still contribute to the Enid community.
I just figured that out when I saw your information yesterday.
So in terms of what you propose, at least in this iteration of agreement or outline, you're talking about a term of 10 years and no guarantee that after the 10 years, the renegotiation is, oh, why would we pay you anything? I mean, I don't know that the tribe would have any incentive to pay a thin dime that doesn't have to at the end of one contract agreement. I mean, that's the nature of a contractual relationship. Is when the contract term is over, parties are strangers.
Well, technically, that's true. If there's some sort of a time frame in the agreement and we get past that time frame, then they would not necessarily be subject to whatever the city wants them to do. However, they do have an incentive to be good neighbors and to keep the city happy. They're going to be paying through the payment in lieu of taxes agreement funds to the city to help. I mean, they're not going to have their own police department, firefighters, hospitals around the casino. They're going to be dependent on the city of Enid for that, and they're going to want to make sure that you all are happy with the situation so that that's not interrupted.
So what other incentive does the tribe have, though, to keep the city happy? I mean, aside from purchasing services on a contract rate, I mean, you could purchase your own security, private security, and install a great fire suppression system. It seems to me, I mean, here's part of what my concern is, in addition to everything else I said 5 minutes ago, but the idea that there's no incentive long-term for the tribe to do anything for the city outside of what is in, as you said, that contractual agreement.
Right.
We've got no leverage. The city still has to maintain the infrastructure around the property. The city has that obligation regardless of your existence or not. The city has responsibility to the neighboring communities to maintain everything else coming up to your property. So why would the tribe not tell us to go fly a kite when the contract is over, whatever that contract term would be?
Partly because the tribe is still going to be dependent on city services. While you do have to provide services to everything around the casino, there's no requirement that you go into tribal jurisdiction and provide fire services or police services. So the tribe would want to make sure that that continues. So that's one incentive.
But other than
there
police
may
and
be
fire,
others, but
other than police and fire and
water,
presumably water,
yeah.
I mean, is there any other, do we have any other
Trash.
leverage over the tribe?
Well, you have leverage right. Sorry, you have leverage right now in crafting an agreement with the tribe in a way that the city is comfortable with. Now, usually contracts don't last forever, but 10, 20 years. I'm sure there can be some agreement where we have built into the agreement a way for the tribe to keep the city happy going forward, and that would just be part of negotiations.
But that seems like that's part of what, I mean, this has been very educational in a lot of ways, but it seems like the leverage that a community has is all front-loaded. And
Yes.
further, the regulation that you're going about, sir, about the regulation that tribal gaming is under seems also kind of front-loaded, aside from the day-to-day operation. Once you're up and rolling, you're not subject to municipal code. You are subject to state law in terms of how the games operate, but not a whole lot else. EPD can't walk in your door and arrest anybody absent some other mutuality agreement.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like this is our only shot. Would you disagree?
I don't disagree.
Okay,
I
thank
think, I think because it's true. The tribe is a sovereign entity, and it would have sovereign jurisdiction over those lands. And if it wanted to tell the city for whatever reason to go take a hike, then, you could say, well, we're not providing you services anymore, and see if the casino could continue to function like that. But I'm aware of a lot of cities that work with tribal casinos, and they work together to try to keep each other happy, just because it's in both of their mutual self-interests. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, because ultimately, technically, legally, you're correct. But we can still build a contract today that will at least protect the city for 10, 20 years.
I heard you say something earlier about 10 years that would be renegotiated. Is that correct?
Yes, but that's just a number I pulled out of the air. It could be whatever the two sides are comfortable with.
Do you have any instances of what Ben is talking about where that's happened, where the tribe has told the city to take a hike and the city said, screw you?
No, I represented the Wichita tribe for a while, and they have a casino in Hinton. The land was taken into trust in Hinton, and they opened a casino there.
I'm sorry, in Hinton?
Hinton, yes. The tribe didn't come to an agreement with the city beforehand. They got the casino up and running without going to the city and talking to the city at all. So the city felt like it was playing catch-up to try to get some payment in lieu of taxes or things. But it ultimately got worked out, and I think if we address all of those issues up front, it can be worked out pretty well for the future.
I'm familiar with that in Hinton.
Yeah. The Sugar Creek Casino.
Sugar Creek, that's exactly right. I have another question. How many casinos do you have in operation today?
The United Katua Band?
Yes, sir.
0.
This will be the first?
Yes, well, they had one for 28 years that was shut down through litigation between the Cherokee Nation and the Interior Department. Cherokee Nation takes the position that no other tribe can have any jurisdiction within its boundaries. Obviously, we strongly dispute that, but as a result of that litigation, the casino was shut down pending the outcome of the litigation. That was about 5 years ago, I believe. So for 5 years, they haven't had any casinos.
So how long do you anticipate that litigation?
We're waiting on, we went to the 10th Circuit in Denver in May and appealing the judge's decision that said the land didn't need to be taken into trust for the Katuas. So we appealed that to the 10th Circuit in Denver, had oral arguments, and I expected a decision this summer, but we're still waiting for it.
Still summer.
Judges have
too.
Yeah, judges have lifetime tenure, and, they take as long as they want to take. So it could be any day, it could be a year before we know what's going to happen with the casino in Tahlequah.
And if you win, you're gonna open it back up.
That would be the plan. Actually, the land that is under the appeal to the 10th Circuit is not the land that the casino was on. That's in a separate appeal in another district, or not appeal, but that's separately being litigated in another district. But theoretically, if the tribe wanted to, they could open a casino on the land that is the subject of this current litigation.
Good luck.
I'm also familiar with Tahlequah.
Okay, good.
Any other questions, comments? Let me see if I have any more. All right. Your location here is by two city parks, near a church, near the Garfield County Jail, near St. Mary's Hospital. Those are all very prominent businesses in Enid, Oklahoma. Is your casino in Tahlequah near anything like that?
Yeah, we were there, yeah,
Use the mic, please. These ears are 76 years old, so
Okay.
I don't want to wear them out, Chief.
All right, I understand. As far as churches, the former casino was about block up the road.
That's the road, there's two buildings over.
Okay.
Right. So that, we never had any issues with that as far as that goes. Schools, no, there was none around it. We were right next to Walmart there in Tahlequah. So if you've ever been to Tahlequah, you had the opportunity to drive by it anyway, so,
I have been to Tahlequah many times.
yes. Okay.
And you don't have alcohol in your casino, right?
No, we did not. No. Okay.
That's a big revenue producer. That surprises me. But I admire you for doing that.
Well, yes. If we had more time, I'd tell you a story about another property where we were asked to remove the alcohol out of it, and we told them that, well, if you wanted $4 million taken out of your budget, yeah, we'll do that.
I hear
What
you.
kind of response we got out of that, yes.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, Chief, I was just going to quickly ask a question. On your casino in Tahlequah, when you originally put that in 28 years ago, did you go through this same process of getting approval from the city and the governor and the Department of the Interior?
Keep in mind, 28 years ago, IGRA, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, was non-existent. Actually, it was 2 years prior to. The original intent was, at that time, across the state of Oklahoma, everybody was playing paper bingo. It wasn't until 2005 that the state of Oklahoma allowed tribes to put in casino class class 3 games, so to speak, in compacts. At that time, in 1986, John Hare, the chief at that time, put in paper bingo. It was nonprofit. They opened it up and went. They had the district attorney as well as a district court judge say a deep Indian community, that's Indian land. They were off to the races. But since the laws have changed a little bit with advent of, and as a matter of fact, we were paying the National Indian Gaming Commission for a couple of years. We were giving them fees to regulate us. And then later on, they came back and said, no, we can't accept your money anymore because your land's not in trust. And so, yeah, we've been bounced around pretty hard with all this advent. But no, the process is a little bit different today than it was back then. Section 20 and all its regulation was in non-existence at that time. Cabazon tribe out of California, the Florida Seminoles, depending on which you argued, which part of the country you argued, we knew that Native Americans or American Indians were gaming and that people were playing at that. So they had to get a handle on that, and this is what we have today, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Carol, do you have any questions?
No.
Anyone else? We're going to finish at 6:04. We are adjourned. We'll meet at 6:30.
Thank you for watching the Enid City Commission study session. All meetings are broadcast on local cable channel 12 and in high definition on channel 112. In addition, the study session is live streamed on the web at enidtv.org. If you have any questions or comments regarding this broadcast, please visit the City of Enid website at enid.org.